If you grew up in the 90s like I did, you loved the Power Rangers. For 3 years, they dominated TV until they collapsed under their own weight. And then they simply just refused to die. But we're going to talk about the glory years here on the Hillbilly Review channel. Let's get with it. It featured lovably bad acting, some cool yet awful special effects, great music, and some cool martial arts action. When I was in kindergarten, this show and Beast Wars vied for my favorite show title. It was like an odd combo of Godzilla, the Ninja Turtles, Star Wars, Transformers, and even a bit of The Wizard of Oz. Let's get to the characters. Tommy, aka the Green Ranger or the White Ranger, he wasn't even in the original cast, but he was the most beloved and popular Ranger of all, and in my opinion, the best as well. He's also my favorite, by the way. He started out as a brainwashed bad guy before rising to become at first just a cool guy who showed up every once in a while to help, and later became not just an official ranger, but the leader of the Rangers. The actor behind him was a martial artist in real life, too. The Dragon Zord was a lovable ripoff of the Godzilla, which is fitting since the show was based on a Japanese show. Sadly, he would have marital troubles in his later years and he would commit suicide. R.I.P. Jason David Frank. I like him better as the Green Ranger than the White Ranger, but as the White Ranger, he had a really cool sword named Saba that talked. He would also call the Dragon Zord up with 2 really catchy tunes from his dragon flute. Kimberly, oh sweet Kimberly. So hot. Definitely one of my first crushes, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Jason, the original Red Ranger, was a cool guy, soft-spoken, kind of like one of them strong silent types. He was the original leader. Billy was a nerd, but a tough nerd. He eventually retired as a ranger and just stayed on as an advisor to the new Rangers until he went off and married some alien chick. Zach was the original Black Ranger. To me, he's gruesomely underrated. He was a really cool, fun-loving dude who had his own fighting style that combined dance. Trini was the original Yellow Ranger. She was fine, but overall my least favorite of the original cast. Sadly, the actress behind her died in a tragic car accident. Rita Repulsa was the main villain originally. She was basically an old hag witch who kept complaining she had a headache, screeched like a banshee every time something went wrong, and blamed others for her mistakes. She was oddly lovable, but I prefer her replacement, Lord Zed. Yeah, he wasn't any more effective than Rita, but he was less annoying and he looked really cool. Goldar was, I guess, a fighting monkey with armor. Come to think of it, this show must have really been influenced by The Wizard of Oz, since the main good guy, Zordon, turned out to be a floating head, and Goldar was like one of those flying monkeys. Alpha 5 was a lovable ripoff of C-3PO. Scorpina, oh man, what a babe. She was like a sexy Goldar. Too bad she didn't last very long. And Bulk and Skull were hilarious. Really incompetent bullies who always screwed everything up. In the first season, they were all bad. In the second, they were still bad, but not quite as bad. But by the third season, they became one of the good guys and joined the police force, even helping the Rangers out a time or two, and becoming friends with the main cast. The show had a proven formula, usually a life lesson about why you shouldn't bully kids, or why you shouldn't try to be popular, or why you should be good to the environment. And then Rita and Zed would send the putties. Oh, those putties. So pathetic, so wonderful. The best were the Zed putties, with the Z on their chest. All you had to do was touch the Z, and then they'd magically explode. Later, there were these bird guys, but the putties were my favorite henchmen. Then a monster would show up, they would fight for a little while, then it would grow to giant Godzilla-sized proportions. Then they'd get their sweet Megazords together to kill it. There's 2 things in particular that were really interesting about this show that no one talks about. Here's one. It showed teenagers who were clearly the popular kids. I mean, Kimberly was a sexy cheerleader, for God's sake. Jason was a jock, Tommy was a jock, Zach was a really cool guy who had a hip-hop swagger, and Trini wasn't as hot as Kimberly, Not many people are, but she was plenty hot enough, and she was also a jock. And they were actually the cool kids who hung out with Billy, who was clearly a nerd. They hung out together, didn't look down on anybody, got along good with their elders, and everybody else for that matter. They didn't do drugs or screw around, and they were great role models too. Yeah, I know these kids don't exist in the real world, but if I wanted reality, I'd read a newspaper. It was refreshing to see cool kids that were actually cool and deserved to be cool. The other thing was the lack of political correctness. The Black Ranger was, you guessed it, a black guy, and the Yellow Ranger was, yeah, you guessed it, Asian. There's nothing wrong with this, of course, but nowadays that would never fly. It was a more innocent time back then, and we would all be better off if we stayed that innocent. The first season was classic TV. The second season was also good, but there were already cracks appearing in the armor. 3 of the cast members, the original Red, Black, and Yellow Rangers, decided they weren't getting paid enough, and they left in a hissy fit, being replaced by 3 other guys, who were generally nice guys and gals, but overall were just mere replacements. The only character I liked better than the original was the sassy Aisha, who became the second Yellow Ranger. The other 2 were just kinda there for me. Although Adam, the second Black Ranger, seems to be the favorite of the franchise, if you go by consensus, but I prefer Zack still. Zed was an improvement on Rita, but the action, particularly the giant monster fights, took a big dive in the second season. They were the best parts of Season 1, but in Season 2, they were basically just easy fights where the Megazords won with just a few punches. The third season got really wacky. They ended up in a children's book at one point, they kept getting turned into kids, and Rita came back with a love potion to make Lord Zed marry her. Which is funny, considering he tossed her in a trash can and flew her into space in the beginning of the second season. A really cool but equally cheesy movie followed, and Ivan Ooze was a sweet villain. Things got really stupid when the show continued with the 3 Rangers that were gone, and they ended up using old footage of episodes we already seen to make up for the fact that they simply weren't there. It was really cheesy and poorly edited. The glory years didn't last long. Characters kept getting replaced and the plots got dumber and dumber. The third season where they turned ninjas was decent enough, but after that it just got formulaic and boring. Zeo and Turbo, where a kid literally grew into adult size when he morphed, were just unrealistic and dull and stupid. Although the movie wasn't too bad for Turbo. Oh, and that new movie? It's crap. Don't watch it. They regrouped and had a decent comeback with Power Rangers in space, and they should have ended there like they planned. But they kept going on and on and on and on. 30 plus seasons. And I don't know anyone who watched past Power Rangers in space when I quit them. They became a big joke because they couldn't just die gracefully. But yeah, this was one of the best parts of my childhood. Yes, the plots were stupid, the acting sucked, and the effects were hit and miss, but so what? There's a kind of magic in childhood that never goes away, no matter how old you get, and that's the kind of magic that the Power Rangers is made of. When I was a kid, I watched them, and I passed them on to my niece and nephew. My niece even wore the pink Power Ranger uniform for Halloween. And as long as those of us that watched it originally pass it on, this show's legacy will never go away.